Hello, my name is Cheryl Lawson. I'm the Executive Vice President for Compliance Review for JMFA, and I'd like to spend a few minutes just chatting with you about a couple of topics that have been of great interest in the last few months, and something that I think that perhaps we can help provide some clarity around. The first of them is the Overdraft Protection Act of 2021. It was issued by Congresswoman Carolyn Maloney, a New York Congresswoman, and this is the ninth time that she's issued the Overdraft Protection Act in some form since 2005, when she issued it in the very first instance. There are some common themes to this bill as she reissues it in each Congress. One is that she would like to require that overdraft fees all be proportional and reasonable, terminology that means a specific thing for the industry. And then she has also identified that she'd like to limit the number of overdraft fees that can be assessed against a particular consumer account to no more than one in a month and no more than 6 in a calendar year. And then the third item that I just want to talk about is her desire to require affirmative opt-in for all channels, not just ATM and everyday debits as Regulation E requires, but also checks and ACHs and recurring debit transactions. In the past, some of these issues have already been looked at by the agencies as well as by legislators and have been essentially addressed. The first of them, the question around reasonable and proportional fees, that has been addressed by the FDIC and supervisory guidance that was made available in 2011. All of the agencies, the NCUA and the OCC and the Fed, all of the agencies are able to inquire about the use of reasonable and proportional fees should they choose to, even though they are not FDIC regulated institutions. And so we certainly have seen the adoption of reasonable and proportional fees across all types of financial institutions, not just FDIC regulated banks. The second category, the issue of limiting the number of overdrafts to 1 per month or 6 in a year, is something that, although it's been brought to the table by Congresswoman Maloney a number of times, it's never gotten traction. In fact, this Overdraft Protection Act that she's created and reissued multiple times has never left committee. It's never gone to the floor of Congress for consideration. It's always simply been a bill issued but never acted upon. And then the third item that I referenced, the requiring of affirmative opt-in for all types of overdraft coverage, checks and ACH, as well as the ATM and debit card transactions, that's actually something that the agencies looked at in 2010 when they were issuing the rules for amending Regulation E. And at that time, it was determined that the appropriateness of requiring the affirmative opt-in simply did not exist. So although it may be something that is desired and certainly good for Congresswoman Maloney to push forward multiple times, we believe that it really doesn't have much of an opportunity or much of a chance to go forward. Now, her bill is actually good, though, for one thing. It's good for the news cycle. And with multiple legislators who sign on to the Overdraft Protection Acts as she issues them in each Congress, it does give them some street credibility for being concerned about and tied to the issue of financial institution legislation. But restating what the legislators have already required and the agencies have imposed really doesn't make anything better as a result of having the Overdraft Protection Act be issued. So we think of it as sort of much ado about nothing. The second topic that I really want to talk about has to do with the kind of environment that we find ourselves in, with multiple financial institutions looking for ways to enhance, revise, celebrate, perhaps even market their overdraft solution in this environment of post-COVID. For example, we've seen Ally Bank, one of the digital banks, announce that they would not assess any overdraft fees at all. Well, at first blush, that looks really impressive, but when you look at the financials, you'll realize that Ally Bank never did assess overdraft fees. So it's kind of pronouncing something that they've always done. You can't, celebrate something that you're doing differently if nothing is different. A different type of approach is one where banks like Frost Bank have recognized that they want to provide a $100 grace for all overdrafts, which allows them to not assess an overdraft fee for any transaction that's $100 or less in value. Certainly another approach that can benefit consumers Doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to help in every case, because many transactions, of course, are associated with debit transactions, and they may be small dollar point, but they may have not been overdraft eligible anyway. If you have a low penetration of Regulation E consumers, then having a grace of $100 or less may not make a huge difference in terms of your revenue stream, since you aren't generating revenue from overdrafts on many of those debit card transactions anyway. There's a number of strategies that have been in the news that try to draw attention to overdraft programs and really ask the question, are there things that should be changed in overdraft solutions to benefit consumers and to make financial institutions more likely to be the sort of best pick for consumers? And so we know that even the standard practice of linking a savings account to a checking account as overdraft protection, which is pretty much as old as banking, is now being celebrated by KeyBank as something new and special. Again, one more opportunity to capitalize on the marketing value of saying out loud what you've always been doing. JMFA has always provided a transparent and disclosed solution for overdraft services, and we've been doing it for over 20 years. We believe that it's a valuable service that enhances the relationship of consumers to their financial institutions and gives consumers support in those times when they need it. We think that the best way to manage money is to live in the black. But if you have a temporary shortfall, that a financial institution can assist with a well-disclosed and transparent overdraft solution that doesn't take away from the relationship, instead enhances it. Well, I hope that's been helpful to just kind of think through a couple of things that are pretty much in the news right now, and things that we think help to communicate why a partner like JMFA is an important asset for a financial institution. It's why we do what we do, and I'm grateful for having a few minutes of your time to chat this through. Thank you so much.